Knobloch's Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, Process Production and Social Media. Hey knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobloch's Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Hello, and welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Martheya. I'm really excited to share my special conversation with Alhadji Gibson. We were able to reconnect because I first met Elijah when I was an undergraduate student at Sam Houston State University, and he was on faculty. In this episode, Elijah shares his career path. We talk about what it was like to create his company, Social Movement Contemporary Dance. We go behind the screen, pun intended, and he shares his creative process of creating We Are Greenwood, which is a critically acclaimed work that has been performed both at the Kennedy Center and Jacob's Pillow. So be sure to follow Social Movement Contemporary Dance on social media. They are on Instagram at Social Movement Dance and on Facebook at SMC Dances. So that way you can stay connected with them. And of course, we'll link it in our show notes. I hope you guys are enjoying our topic of the month, creative process. And without further ado, please enjoy Elijah's contagious positivity and his creativity. And I hope it brings you some inspiration. Enjoy. Hello, welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. I'm your co-host Martheya, and I'm here with Elijah, and we're in Fort Worth, Texas, while he's studying work at Texas Christian University. So I'm just really happy. I met Elijah at my time at Sam Houston State University. Now we're kind of off doing different things, and it's just really good to meet up with you again.
Likewise.
So let's go ahead and dig right in.
Okay. Can
you briefly walk our audience through your career path and how you ended up founding and directing Social Movement Contemporary Dance?
Okay. Well, it's crazy how I actually started dancing. I didn't really start training until I was in college. I didn't know you could get a degree in dance. And I was an undergrad at Sam Houston State University, and a friend of mine invited me to Dances at 8, which was a student-run production, dance choreographer production that students could do. And I went to it and I saw it and I asked her, I'm like, how do you get a chance to do this? And she's like, I'm a dance major. I was like, oh, wow. So long story short, I ended up switching my major to dance my sophomore year. I originally went to school. I was a biology major with a minor in chemistry.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I had this crazy science background. And that's really what started it. And then from there, at the time, the chair was Dana Nicolay. And if it wasn't for him, his influence, I most definitely wouldn't have even pursued dance as a career professional dancer. From there, ended up moving to Chicago, to dance with Gus Giordano Jazz at Chicago. Ended up there because they used to have an event called Jazz's World Congress. And at the time it was great. Now they have a lot of these different dance conventions that you can go and take. But that one, there was nothing like it. During the day, you took classes from literally the godfathers of jazz dance, Matt Maddox, Luigi, Gus Giordano himself, Joe Tremaine, Frank Hatchett, Patty Obie, some of the, Giordano Company, first company members. It was
really
amazing.
Cool.
And then they had a Leo's competitive event that was sponsored by Leo's Dancewear, the shoes and all of that stuff. And, they took submissions from all over the world. And they would take about 24, 25. And then those submissions, they competed in the choreographic competition. Those were the matinee performances. So every day there were probably 4 or 5 or however they divided them up. And then in the evening, you saw mixed bag performances from the professional dance companies, from all over the world.
Wow.
And it was all under the umbrella of jazz dance. And it was interesting because it was still, dance was somewhat new to me. I had some experience when I was younger. I had tap danced but I didn't really know a lot of things. So this just opened my eyes to so many more things. And it was then that I auditioned, for Gus Giordano Jazz in Chicago. They had given me a position in the second company. And prior to that, I had actually graduated from college early. from Sam Houston. And it's because prior to that, my first years, I got all my genetics out of the way. So when I finally switched to dance, I was able to just plow through those things.
Classes,
But even then, it was still new to me. And so, of course, not really knowing what I wanted to do and being afraid, I was like, I'm not ready yet. So immediately the spring semester of blah, blah, blah. I don't want to age myself. I started grad school just really out of being afraid to really go out there to pursue dance because I still didn't feel that I was ready.
So this is after you danced in the jazz company?
No. This was still in undergrad. Sorry. Yeah, I kind of jumped off.
Okay.
So I was in undergrad and so not in...
Oh, so simultaneously you were in undergrad and taking grad school classes?
Well, I graduated in December of 98. And then I started grad school spring of 99.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And this is when, actually, that year before that, I'd seen something about the Jazz and World Congress. And I was like, what is this? And by that time, I saw that you could enter into the... And it's so funny because at Sam Houston, I started a little dance company. And it all started from, I took a jazz class when I would see things and I'm like, I really want to do this and I wanted more. So I actually started offering a free jazz class on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. They let me use the space. They wouldn't let me use the equipment. So I brought a boombox and literally when I tell you it was so packed, you had dance majors, Orange Pride dance team majors, people who had danced in, high school and that kind of started this thing. So I started a group and we would do little performances around town. Even the yearbook at Sam Houston, they had asked me every day. They were trying to promote the yearbook sales, which is why I don't know if universities even have yearbooks anymore, but we did then. And every day for a week, we would do a different performance around campus. And it was basically flash mobs before flash mobs even started.
Oh my gosh.
So if you look up when flash mobs started, it said it was 1 year, but we were actually
before the time. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think I ain't been at the
There's our quote right there.
Yeah, I ain't been at the flash mob. But, so yeah, we would do those different things and it kind of just blossomed into this thing. So I was like, let me enter something into the Jazz and World Congress, but it was too late. By the time I saw it, it was actually going to be that following week. So the next year I thought I'd submit something. I did. And also with that, I auditioned for Ailey and I got a scholarship to go there for their year-round program. So I told myself, I'll go for the fall semester. Then after that, I'll come back and I'll just pick up where I left off with all the biology stuff. I mean, even when I switched my major, it's interesting because my dad was okay with it. I mean, I think that's where he's the one who's more arts inclined. I think that's where I got it from. When he was younger, he was actually in a band. They recorded 2 albums.
Cool.
He's the one who my mom was the one, surprisingly enough, was like, what are you doing?
Questioning the arts.
Questioning, because she had she didn't really know anything about it. She wasn't an artist. She didn't do, so, I mean, growing up from the time she was in high school, graduated high school, she was in banking. And that was just her, so she
different mindset.
Yeah. I had no idea anything. So we, so I decided I was going to do that, then do it for a semester, then come back and pick up. But lo and behold, when I went to Jazz and World Congress, and that year it was in Buffalo, New York. I had auditioned, for the company, and I got into the second company and I decided I was going to take it. I was going to move. I wasn't going to come back to school. And the one thing that really stood out to me about Giordano was that, I mean, just like a rep company, they had different choreographers come in and they had, Philadelphia was there. They had a company from, Japan, Massacre Action Machine, from Italy. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to say the wrong name. A company from France, from Utah, which is now Utah Contemporary Dance, but I think it was called Odyssey. Spectrum Dance Theater at the time before, Garth that's over it now. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I have to do more research, but there was a different artistic director at the time. Out of Seattle, they would come, companies, Lula Washington. I mean, so there were so many different, companies that all fit under the umbrella of what jazz dance was. But the thing about Giordano's is that every piece they did, they didn't look like Giordano's trying to do this choreographer's work. They were so successful at at being like they fit into what that choreographer wanted. They
weren't like trying it on.
Yeah,
They
kept the integrity of the movement and so that's the thing I loved about it, was being able to become these other people, this other character. And I think that is what stood out, because it's funny that I'm having an interview and speaking right now, because I was never the kind of person to really talk in public. I was very reserved. I didn't. And like, right, maybe now because it's one-on-one, but I don't like being in front of large crowds, which is another thing that's weird as a teacher, I can go into this space and teach in front of, and be so comfortable.
I would never
but
guess that about you.
I do not like, I wouldn't say I'm very much an introvert, and people don't think that.
It's really interesting you bring up. I feel like that's the case with like a lot of creative people too.
Really?
It's like almost when you're teaching or you're performing, it's like another character or something. It's a different part of you. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so I was able to do that thing. So I ended up, make long story short, I ended up moving to Chicago. I said, I'm not going to do the A-League thing. I fell in love with the cop, moved there. And actually moving there, it was such an eye-opener. I mean, I just right away, and it's always kind of your big fish in a small pond when you're at school or what have you. Then you move to Chicago. I moved there, and another thing that I think it just with choreography really opened my eyes. It allowed me to really start to speak.
You are listening to Navox Dance.
I feel like in your classes too, just like from my experience in taking your class, you really set up this like respectful environment. I remember like when you came to Sam, it was like, oh, you have to be in this room at this time, shoes off, wearing this.
Just ready to go.
But I think that that's important life skill. That's applicable, not
preparedness.
Just for, exactly.
And I think sometimes when people are just allowed to show up, they're not really, because I think even with the dance, it's not even so much about the dance. Yes, it is, but it's how you're preparing yourself for what is that you're going to do. There's this book called The Invisible Actor. It's called,
we can link it in our show notes.
Yoshi Inoue. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, but it's great because he talks about, and he's ancient Japanese acting techniques, but in there they don't refer to acting; they refer to dancing, and it's all synonymous. Acting, singing, dancing is all the same thing. But he talks about how the actor prepares himself. Even in the studio, they go in and they literally clean the entire studio with a rag. And it's about the preparation, about there's such a craft to it. And I think when you're coming in, and if I'm able to just come in and just look like you woke up out of bed, you're not really mentally ready.
Right.
When you have to actually get yourself ready for something, you're already mentally there. And that's a part of it, the awareness.
Well, I want to stop you there, Elijah. What are some things that you do to become prepared, whether it's to teach a class, work on choreography, or are they different processes?
Yeah, most definitely.
I think we're always like, I know myself included, I'm always looking for strategies that other people use and how I can apply those to my own life.
It's funny because for a class and people don't even know. And it's like, and I have a preset warm up. I'll change things.
Which I have to say, I love that you have a preset warm up. That's something I've applied in my own practice because I think it's important.
Yeah. And I'll change things, but as it goes on, the people, they know it, and I can add other things because what it is, I think it's just really that first it's called the pre-stretch. It's like a good 5, maybe 10 minutes. Sometimes it varies of something that is just going just to get the body going. And also because I think some people, when they dance, they just go. But I'm like, no, you're actually focusing on what it is that you're doing. But then at one point when you know it, you can really figure out what you need for yourself. And then I might add other things sometimes because really it is, for me, technique. I think we get caught up into this, it's about how many pirouettes you can get the leg up. And I was like, no, but you have to realize in different types of dances, there are different types of techniques for those things. And it's really just about the awareness of what it is that you're doing with your body. These classes that we take, depending on what genre it is, these are just conditioning the muscles for you to have the strength and the muscle control to understand what it is that you're doing. And in class, all these things that I'm giving, they're tests. They're just tests to see how aware you are of what it is that you're doing within that genre. I guess this idea of preparedness.
Yeah. So what do you do before class? Like walk us through what you do before you even come to class. How do you prepare? I have the music. I think about it and people don't even believe this, but and I'll change the music quite a bit because it gets mundane sometimes, the same thing. And I literally will play a higher thing and I map out. The whole playlist.
Especially the pre-stretch. I most definitely will play this out. And I'll play it and I do it in my brain to see how it matches up with the music. Okay,
like visualizing.
Where does this end in the music? Because right when that ends, especially with contemporary class, it goes into this whole thing where I might have them improv for a bit, or it goes into this follow along that I do.
Mm-hmm.
So like it needs to end right away. So I haven't given time to breathe. And it just depends on where I'm going. If they've never taken class with me before,
mm-hmm.
and allowing for that space, then they're like, okay, it's going to go into this plie thing.
Mm-hmm.
I literally go through it. And then before I go into class, I have to get to class early.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. For me, this coffee. I'm not a big coffee drinker anyway. So it's like, I go into the space. I have to be into the space. And it's funny because sometimes when I go places where I have men, they'll like, ask me, what time do you want to get there? Say the class starts at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, I want to at least get there by 9 o'clock so I can go get ready. And I want to be in a space at least 30 minutes. I have to be in the space before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to walk around in the space. And it's, some people think it's weird, but if I'm going to teach a class, and there have been times where I've gone to teach master classes or places, and, you know, they're a little like, they're like, oh, it's fine. You know, kids will, I'm like, no, but I can't. I need to be in that space.
Mm-hmm. And so what do? You do walk around?
I walk around.
Stretching?
Sometimes I'm just there and I listen to music. I start moving. And for me, it's like play music, or sometimes I have to be in a space before people come into it. Mm-hmm. Because for me, it's like I need to feel the energy of this space, or at least give, I don't know, maybe something comes out of me and it penetrates the space. And then as people are walking in, I observe that and I feel that energy. How are they coming to the space? Are they coming? Do they go and talk? Do they get themselves ready? Because sometimes that's another thing. When people aren't coming in and getting themselves ready, it affects me. Or if they go over there, and I'm really affected by it. People don't realize, and they think, and sometimes I think when I get I'm quiet, like those energy, it really does affect me. So I don't know what kind of energies are going to be in there. So if I just walk in and people are already there, it's a lot for me. I'm processing. It's
overwhelming.
Yeah. And I have to already be in there. So as it's coming in, I can adjust how I'm, because I always tell people this, I can always tell what kind of dancer someone's going to be. Not how good they are.
Like, what do you mean?
Not how good of a dancer they're going to be, but I can tell how they're going to move through space. Just by how they're standing, how they're going to move through space, how they're going to process information, and just literally by how they stand or how they carry it, I can tell by that. But then also when they come in and seeing how they come into a space, it never fails me. I can always tell what kind of, and it's hard because some people on their faces might show one thing, but that's not necessary, and you can't read into those things. So that's why I have to look at how they come in. And also you never know what kind of day they were having earlier that morning that could affect. And I think that's one of the things, and it's funny because my dancers now we have 2 residencies going on right now. I'm at TCU, then Arlington Heights High School, which is literally right down the street where we're doing 2 different things. So so they're teaching, and it's interesting how, you know, in this high school, they have intermediate dancers, advanced dancers, and they have the company. Then they have some kids who are literally just their first class, which is really unique about this school because it's a public school, but they have a dance program. Unlike some other schools that are public schools that have dance programs, you have to audition to get into this. Right. It's not that way, but it is a dance program with a curriculum and everything. And so it's interesting. And they're like, oh, these kids are this and this and that, or I love them with this and this and that. And even them that they teach in studios. And I said, it's interesting that you guys are talking about this because, you know, you were once that kid.
That's true. Yeah.
And not understanding how much energy it takes. And so when you come into a space and you have this attitude and you're not necessarily a bad attitude, but you know, you have to realize that your energy affects that teacher. So if you're coming in a certain kind of way and then you want the teacher to be a way, it goes hand in hand.
So it seems like energy is really important to you. Yeah. And I'm wondering if I want to talk a little bit more about your company. So for our audience, could you explain a little bit about your company, why you started it?
So this is a funny thing. I think I've tried to start a company many times.
Oh, really?
So when I was in...
Well, you had mentioned you had the jazz company like at Sam.
And that was a little different, but we actually had a president. I mean, that was, you know, kind of, let's do this, you know, but when I was dancing with Giordano's, and again, when I started doing a lot of work, then I started choreographing a little bit more, and when I started doing things, when I left the company, which was really weird because I was the kind of very Virgo, very type A. I never did anything everything was planned. Even when I first started choreographing, I would go in, I would notate. Not exactly all, you know, level notation, but it was a form of it. I knew exactly this formation, this person's going to do this. I would choreograph. You
knew what you wanted.
Yeah. And of course that process has changed significantly. You know, I don't necessarily do that as much. But I was going back and forth to New York and to LA trying to decide where I was going to move, what I was going to do next. And before I left the company, though, it was really weird because I had not, I don't want to say it was unexpected. I kind of started feeling like I needed more. I mean, I loved what I was doing, but I had grown as an artist. I hope that's what I was.
Yes.
And, but I hadn't really planned on anything. So, and it freaked me out of a person who doesn't have a plan, the action next.
Because you would always have that plan.
And I left the company. I didn't have a job. I didn't know I was going to work. I hadn't really been doing anything because that was my life. I had devoted all this stuff to the company. Then I left and I'm like, oh my gosh. But right when I did, things just opened up. And I think people saw that I was, okay, he's free. He's not tied down with the company. He can do this. So
more opportunities.
Yeah. And that's when my choreography and teaching career really kind of started taking off.
Oh,
and
that makes sense.
So I was based out of Chicago. I didn't move to Los Angeles. I didn't move to New York. I stayed there and I was doing this, but then I started doing a lot more choreography. I had dancers I'd been working with. And so people asked me, they said, do you have a company? I said, no, these are just dancers that I work with and I create work. Then after that, shortly, I ended up moving to Winchester, Virginia, which is, northwest of DC, right outside of DC. And there was a conservatory there. I started teaching in higher education. And it happened because one of the Giordano former company member who was some, years before me was going on sabbatical and he had asked me if I would be a sabbatical replacement. And when he had first asked me, I said, well, I can't. Maybe if it was in the fall, possibly because we have a little more off time. We do our home season and we have time off in the winter, but in the spring, we're heavy touring. So there was no way. This is because I had gone back to the company actually by this point after I left because someone broke contract mid-season. So I went to finish out his contract and then I stayed for like 2 more years. Some things started happening to where I was like, I can't do this. So I ended up leaving the company, broke contract. In the spring of 2008, I moved to Shenandoah and I was a sabbatical replacement. Well, they had gotten a new line and they were talking to me about maybe doing this. But at the time also I was in communication with Robert Moses at that time and maybe about going to dance for him. But I always loved teaching. I mean, I think if I could have been a professional class taker, I would have loved to do that because I love being in a space and it's the idea of figuring out why these things work. And so with teaching, it was great because I could see this and like, oh, okay, maybe I should switch. So
it's almost like choreographing the
whole
time.
Figuring out these things and what works and problem solving. And so I ended up doing that. And then when I was at Shenandoah, it's funny because a friend of mine who teaches at another university some years later had asked me, they would bring in companies for their as guests in their show. And she's like, we're not going to bring a company in, but I would love for you to maybe put some work together. So I got some dancers I've been working with and put something together. And it was just really cool to see dancers who knew me that I trained, bring my work to life in that way. And I'm like, maybe I should start a company. But then some things happened where they did some things and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to invest all my time in creating this. And these dancers just don't understand what it's like,
Like the respect maybe.
Yeah. And just not understanding, because some things aren't being taught sometimes. And I read that it should be, so I was like, oh, never mind. I'm not doing this.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
And at that time, actually, when this happened, I had already moved to U of I. I was teaching there at this time.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm just going to do this. And then after that, I come to Sam Houston. And, and so what happened basically, how it transitioned to company. I know I'm jumping around.
Because some of your performers now went to Sam, so.
Actually, all of them.
Oh, all of them. I didn't realize. Okay.
Different times. They're from different places, but we had some type of connection through Sam because they came through there. But these are
ones, they were attracted to you. Maybe it's you.
And it was mutual. It was mutual. And, and what happened was how basically social movement started, which is so interesting just because 2 days ago on my timeline, a video had popped up of this process that basically was the beginnings of social movement contemporary dance. I didn't know at that time. But it was a rehearsal of We Are Greenwood. We were in the rehearsal for We Are Greenwood, which is a piece I choreographed, which actually is what started the company. So can
we pause real quick?
Yes,
I do want to talk more about We Are Greenwood.
Yeah.
As that was the piece that like really stuck out in my mind. I saw it at ACDA, and I remember like, he went to Sam Houston. He was my professor. I was telling everyone that was my first year of grad school, and like everyone was like, "Wow, this is brilliant." And my friend Azaria, she's another co-host on the podcast. She was like, "I wish I could have come to meet you," because she remembers your work as well. So I just had to say that. But I just wonder if you could talk more about like how it's so rooted in culture and identity. And this is the work that was at the Kennedy Center and then Jacob's Pillow. And so it seems like that was kind of like a clicking point for your company, and then also just for like your choreographic, I guess, identity.
Well, and it's so funny because, so I'm going to get to that, but just even backtracking, when I was in Chicago, dancing and with Giordano's, which was really interesting. And it's going to go back and forth because a lot of these things most definitely influential when I think about it now, when I go, as I keep moving on and I think about just my identity as a dancer, moving there when I first started, at one point becoming the face of Gus Giordano Jazz in Chicago was crazy. Like I was a poster boy, but it was a white company and a city where it was like a lot of white dance, you know, and here I am, this African-American, dark skinned African-American, you know, and it's just like, wow, you know, I didn't even realize what was that was going on. But Gus always made me feel welcome. He didn't make me feel like, and it was weird. He made a space for me, but he didn't make me like, oh, you're this black guy in this company, I have to protect you. But thinking later, like he really did protect me in some ways, which I didn't really think about, you know,
in the moment.
Well, because when we would go on tour to other places and but it's, the guys, so it's going to go back and forth so much because it talks about this. But even then when I started choreographing, I think my work always somehow deals with the human condition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do want to talk more about that later.
And so it's not necessarily, I think, and so people think that everything is rooted in this cultural identity, which it's not that it's on purpose, but it's who I am. So it's
coming from you.
From me. Yeah. And that's the thing. So it was crazy, but with the We Are Greenwood thing, what happened was when I first came to Sam, and one of the pieces everything was always about something, some type of story. And I most definitely, when I first went there, I was going to set a work, and there's always this pressure. I know people, when I came there was already
like this new person.
Yeah. And they already knew that I had a strong choreographic sensibility, sense. So I'm like, I feel like I have to do this. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to come in and feel like I have to do this. And I think also when I go back to grad school, a lot of my focus was in somatic studies, which I absolutely loved because before then I really had no experience in them. And for me, and just, I had some of the most amazing,
it's a coffee maker.
Mentors and professors, and one of them was Luc Vanier, I don't know if I'm mispronouncing his name, and Elizabeth Johnson. I absolutely love them. Just their information and how it affected me as a dancer, teacher, how I look, the movement I'd already done, but it forced me to look at it differently and to really dissect it and be able to explain it differently.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, just using Alexander. Well, this is my thing. I think sometimes when people are big somatic people, sometimes they use that as a technique. And for me, I just like, it shouldn't replace a technique. It should inform it. And that's what I really took away from them. And it just really helped me be able to give and it's funny because, for me, it helped me develop a common language that could be given to anyone who really didn't know some of those things. And so, going back to that, sorry, I go on tangents, especially when I speak. That's one of the reasons why. But going back to it's going to come back to, so when I was at Sam, so with that, without endgaining was a thing I really took from that. And I did that a lot. And so with this piece, I'm like, you know what, this is like endgaining. I'm feeling like I need to do this. And so I created this work and I said, I think you saw Without Endgame.
Yeah, I did.
I was like,
that was the duet, right?
No, it was like a group piece. And it was the first work I did that fall, one of my fall semester at Sam. It was Steve Reich, and I came out from the back.
Yes.
And so in that work, what it was for me was, I said, and I had that music. I've been sitting on that music for years, and I always went to choreograph to it, which I do quite a bit, but it has to be right. It has to be the right group. And at this moment, I was in that moment where I'm going to use this music, and it's not going to be about anything. I'm just going to choreograph to the music, whatever it tells me to do, I'm going to do it. And there were three movements at 3 sections. I was like, and I'm going to stop it when the music stops. That'll tell me to stop. And that was literally the piece. Like I started and I was moving. Then when the music stopped, all right, I'm done with this section. And that was it. And like when it ends, they walk off stage. I mean, and which is, I'm excited because we're bringing that work back into the Human Condition, which is our season in October.
Yes.
So with that, then the next year, but the one thing that really, there were quite a few things, that came up around that time. And I don't know how I came across a story, but, Black Wall Street, which was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 1921. Oh, sorry. There's a vacuum out there.
Okay.
The race riots happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and people don't even know about it. And I don't like to say.
Explain it?
Yeah. And I don't like to say it was a race riot. It was actually a massacre. And it was, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, called Black Wall Street, it was affluent Black community. And Greenwood was the intersection. It was a street where they all lived. But what happened was, it was a place to where a lot of African Americans went there because they were doctors, lawyers, and they had their own community. And what's really interesting when you think about that too, with segregation, at that time, we spent money in our own communities. And so the money that folded, it was tenfold than what was going on in some of the white neighborhoods. We had our own hospitals and you had these people, they were educated and basically, the story of what happened was apparently there was a bellboy who was in the elevator and a white female came in and she screamed that something happened. And so they were he ran and they were looking for him. There are a lot of different stories of what happened. So they were trying to find him. They wanted to lynch him. And basically they went through and massacred the people.
Wow.
Yeah. You can go on, there's so many documentaries and that's kind of what that started. And I was so touched by this story. And it's funny because there were even recordings of things that were happening while they were doing it. And I heard something that, you can hear one of the recordings that one of the guys, when they went into the neighborhoods, it said something, well, they live better than us. Because and that's just what it was, but they killed, pretty much everyone. There's some people, I think she's in her 90s. She hid and she's still alive today. And you can hear podcasts with them talking about that. So I was really touched by that story. So with me, and at the time, a lot of the things that were going on within the department at SAM, all of these different microaggressions and things that were going on with the students, and even watching, I'm looking at just how things are being cast. And you have all of these people of color, not just Black people, but a lot of different minorities, and they weren't being used in the department. And, and a lot of it's interesting because it's hard when you don't see yourself in these people. So it's hard. You're not casting them. And there were a bunch of other things that were going on as far as casting as well, that, played a part into what was going on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do a piece with all people of color because none of them were being cast. And they were talented.
Yeah.
Talented.
Do you think that your work is offering solutions or rather just offering questions?
Well, that's where the solution starts, because I think people have to want to question and at least talk about it, or you can't create a solution. And that's the thing is sometimes I think with a lot of work when it's dealing with these kinds of things is that it's always about, this is what happened to us. You did this. And that shuts people off. People don't want to talk about it because they feel guilty, or they're like, oh. And for me, I don't think We Are Greenwood does that. And what it did in the beginning, people fall in love with these people. And then all of a sudden you hear these microaggressions, like, what are they doing here? How were they dressed? But these were things that these students were hearing every day, or that we hear all the time. What do you do? And all of a sudden you see the energy shift and you feel that when you've already fallen in love with these people, you sit there happy. And then when they hear these things and you hear this being said and they shift. And then it goes into Strange Fruit. And that was hard because I didn't want to use that song because it's been used so many times. And of course with it, they're not dancing to those words. It's just the idea of just this oppression and, and being looked at as this savage. And, and it's what at the time was 2016, but we're still being looked at as these savages, not even from the 50s, but even before then, the early 1920, even before then. And it's like, how is that? No matter how well you're dressed, how educated you are still perceived that underneath it all, you're still perceived as this uneducated, savage, buffooned criminal, different levels of that, and then what happens and where it turns, what happens is like, and it's systemic. And then we start to believe that when you're constantly referred to, and that's where it goes into that third section. You see they're in a circle and there's this, and we look at each other that way. And so then it's just embedded within our own neighborhoods. It shifts, and that's how we treat each other. And so there's just this cycle of, and that was the idea behind We Are Greenwood, but it all came from that idea of those things happening. But then you have to look at it, what it does to you as a person. And so you don't come out of that. And then it's hard because when you don't realize it, you're not educated enough to really see these things. And so it's just this.
It just continuously happens.
It continues to happen. Yeah. So that was the idea behind that. And then what came from that was, shortly after that, I was, asked to create in 10 Tiny Dances, which it started in Seattle, and it's called Countercurrent. Yeah. And then
I've seen it on Instagram.
Yeah. And they produced it in Houston. And this year it was Harrison Guy who was a curator of it. And he decided, since he was going to do this, he wanted to use all choreographers who were people of color. And so I used two of my dancers. Now, at the time, we still weren't, and everything happened on this box. Used 4x4. And how this idea came up was I started reflecting. And was this after? Yeah, I think this was after I'd done the Black Heart. So let me rewind.
Okay. Because I do want to talk a little bit about the Black Heart.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of your work, or perhaps just like your company in general, deals with like these like heavier issues of like cultural appropriation. And I did want to ask you about that. Just coming from me, a white person, I'm curious how you define cultural appropriation.
It's so crazy too, and that's the one thing I want to get, because the last show we just did was called That's Entertainment. And it's interesting. One of my dancers, who's a white female, she had said, that's when I asked her, well, I want to come show what it's like. I want to bring students. I want to bring kids, but I know Elijah's work always deals. And I said, it's interesting because all my work doesn't. And, we did We Are Greenwood and the Black Heart did that, but there's always some type of social awareness, but it's not always about that. I mean, we did the Girly Show, which was basically about, how we objectify the female body and really how we look at the female dancing body. And it had nothing to do with, and I did Mi Champeta, which goes along with the cultural appropriation thing, which I actually had to start to question myself, okay, so what am I really saying is culturally appropriating, or what is this? Because, which started back when we danced with Giordano's and then the company Massacre Action Machine. They were from Tokyo, Japan.
Okay. Yeah,
and
you
they would
mentioned
come
them earlier.
And it's always been an interest. And past couple of years, maybe 7, is when I've really started to kind of delve into that whole, and I probably should, maybe, I don't know if necessarily publish this research or whatever, but I've been putting it into a lot of the work that I do. But I was so intrigued by the fact that they came out, and their dances they were titled like Thunder, Dragon, Tsunami. And when you look at, cultural dances, especially from other countries, the art it's deeply embedded within their heritage. Deep, like where they sing, dance, all that stuff. So they were doing these dances, and they most definitely were doing what is, I guess you could look at it and think martial arts, but not even that. It's because it's embedded. That's how they move. They do these images and movements and gestures that were so culturally significant, but then they would bust out into like this little thing what we would call the MC Hammer, the running man. And I'm like, wow, they're doing these dances that obviously have some type of cultural significance, but then within that, they're embedding these westernized movements. I'm like, how is that changing what this dance means? And so I've always really been interested and I guess when I go, because I just took a trip to Colombia, South America last year, and it changed. I mean, whenever I go to the country, I'm always changed, but this most definitely just like, and I'm still processing it. It blew me away.
Create, discuss, and advocate for art. No box dance.
One of the pieces I did in the Black Heart. So the Black Heart was actually in the evening. And all these pieces, on all these pieces, there were different works that touch base on all the different things that you're reading. So what you're reading was a description of a lot of stuff. And so I had a piece called FUBU, which is an acronym by Damon Dash. He had a clothing called For Us By Us. And it was I remember when, what's his name? Tommy Hilfiger, a long time ago, there was a statement that had come out where he said his clothes aren't meant for Black people. And so this was kind of a response. He created FUBU, and it was For Us By Us. And that's what this piece was about, because it was just one of these things where I'm like, you have all of this music that's going on. And this is where that is about the culture push, and we don't even realize what's going on. Like, and I think what it was I was Big Mama Thornton is her name. And, Elvis Presley, You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog.
Yeah. That
was written by her.
I feel like I read that somewhere.
And what happened was, after she had written and performed it, there was a Black quartet in Vegas that would sing it, and Elvis saw it, and he took it, and of course he changed some of the words, but people don't even realize, but I said, a lot of this music, and there was this, it was like, at that time, one of the popular songs was sung by Justin Bieber. Instant like that, I'm sorry. And I'm looking at it and I said, you know what? If you stripped out all those lyrics away, it's a soca beat. Boom, boom, boom. So when I started playing with, I'm like, wait a minute, boom, 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 boom. And I started listening to that, and I told her, I was like, listen to this. And then, and that boom, 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 work, Rihanna. And what happened was, I remember when that song came out, everyone was like, what is she speaking? It sounds like, it's patois, it's a dialect. So you idiots, you guys are criticizing her. You're uneducated. And it's making you look, well, not say they're uneducated, but they're ignorant about that. And so it's making you look really stupid. And then I even went further back and I was like, you think about this. People don't even realize that. Oh, you think about, reggae, they know Bob Marley, they know Ziggy Marley, but they don't even realize there's so much more than that. But that's, and so I said, you know what? I'm going to do this through music. We're going to talk about this. So I started the piece. And I wanted it set in a nightclub. There's a DJ on the stage and it comes in and it's like this whole, and I wanted there to be different ethnicities. Because when you look at that now, we all enjoy this music, but we don't really, which kind of goes into even with dance, we don't understand the source of these things.
Right.
And so that's how I kind of did that. And I went through rock music. It started with this whole thing, and there was it started with this whole thing in the club. They're dancing and it goes in, then it goes in and out, and then it goes to this big party anthem. When I was in high school and college, it was called House of Pain, an Irish rock group, rap group. And people didn't realize that. But here you go, this white rap group hit the number one, and they're Irish, and then it switched in and out. And then it goes into, there's, when you go to the club, there's always the guys get crazy. So the girls are like, play this. And so it goes into Rihanna, working the dance of work, and they're dancing, and and it's raw. Like how when they're in the club, they're doing all these different things. It goes to Patra, who's a queen of dance hall, and all this is infused, and then it goes in, and it goes in and out. So they're starting to see the correlation of like, oh, this Justin Bieber song is really rooted in this. And after that ends, it goes into, because there's always the love song, the ballads. And so when they're talking about last call, it goes through the night, like we're clever. We play, I'm like, okay, I need an R&B song, but something by a white artist that was famous, and Robin Thicke, Blurred Lines. So that's playing in the background, like, oh, get to the club, the bars, And then it goes into, the song Nothing Really Matters is Lauryn Hill and D'Angelo, which, like a lot of other Black people know the song, because this was just a jam. You're going to slow dance. So it goes through this whole thing. And then, of course, and it's funny how it unfolds, because then it's this one couple, it's centered around. And then another girl walks by and he's looking at her in the club. So she gets pissed. And then he starts talking to the girl. And then she's like, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. And it goes into Hound Dog. But it's Big Mama Thornton's version, not Elvis's. So it shows where, and after that, it starts to go into talking about just a lot of the different dance and house music, how it started, and dealing with voguing. So, it spans. And that piece is the longest. That one's about 30 minutes. So it kind of spans the whole thing of like, you see where a lot of these things are coming from that we're using now in pop music, but how it's been appropriated. Because, the root of, because a lot of these things, I mean, the people or the demographic that started it, they're not really benefiting from a lot of these things. And it's kind of like, who was it that said, I don't want to misquote it, but they said it was one of the R&B artists. She said, they want R&B artists, but they don't want Black people singing it. And it's like, and I look at music now with a lot of these things that, that's a whole nother subject, but that's how I address that one. That.
Well, Elijah, we're going through time. I could literally sit here and talk to you for hours, but I just want to touch a bit on social media, because I feel like so much of what you do whether it's like the teacher role, choreographer, all the hats that you wear is really rooted in identity. And so I'm just curious, how do you frame your digital identity? Because you do such a cool way of like connecting with people. I always see you talking to the phone on your Instagram stories and things like that. So I'm just wondering, like, I mean, I think there definitely is something to be said about connecting to humans in that way. But I guess, how would you describe your digital identity for you?
You know, it's really weird. I think that's just that. Actually, I'm not even purposely, that's just me. I'm just like, hey, you know, like it's interesting because even with that, I've always been really particular about my work. I'm not one to really put stuff out like that. Like people, they put their whole work set, and I'm really.
I know. I was trying to find videos
you know,
of
and
your
a lot
work.
of times when I'm a choreographer stuff, I would even write a contract. This can't be posted, and if it's posted, I need to know which of. Even right now, when I'm here, they have a clause they want me to, like, things that they can use it for this. And I'm like, yeah, but anything you post, I want to approve it first. Especially with my work. I'm very sensitive about that. And I like my work to be seen live. I think it's something you feel it when you're in the presence of it. And so you just seen it online. You know, that's not where I want my full stuff to exist. So I'm always particular about that. But it's interesting because for this next show, the photographer came in and one of my dancers has a camera, so he'll do stuff too behind the scenes and we'll use those things. And I only pick certain images that are going to go out. And all of a sudden, some of the stuff he took, he posted it and he did play with it on his artist page because he has 2 Instagrams, and he tagged the 2 dancers that he uses, and they put it in their story, but then all of a sudden they posted it. I said, take those down. I was like, first off, you're releasing all this stuff, and you have to realize we have a show coming up. And I'm strategically releasing things at a certain time. And if you did all these images out, like,
there's no surprise.
Yeah. And also and it's
so
also,
what's your strategy then for releasing?
Well, it's so funny because what I try to do, like for this next show, leading up to the week of every Monday, like, so every week, I'm releasing a new image. And then like
to build excitement.
Yeah, build excitement. Just also keep it in people's minds. Because if you release everything now, the show's not until the end of October. We're forgetting about it. And there's so many other things going on. So just to keep remembering them. And then what I'll do is midweek, like I did this today, the images I've already released. So I released 3 so far. I'll put those boom, boom, boom. So like, oh yeah. Then like Monday, I'll do a reminder.
You already saw this.
Yeah. And then Monday I'll do a new one, and I'll keep doing that. Then the week of, or maybe like 2 weeks out, I'll start doing more stuff. We might release some video things, and I'm always talking about it. The dancers share it. And
how did you come up with this strategy? Is this just something that
it's just? Well, I just knew. Well, with the black card, I knew I had 3 images that I had.
And those are powerful images. Yeah.
And that first one I already knew. I was like, I'm going to release this every 2 weeks. I think I was going to do something for that one. Or maybe it was every week. And I was like, I'm going to do this one first. Actually, were there 4 images? 4. And I was like, each one. And they all signify something. Then like all of a sudden when they release a video. And it was just, I just know how people's attention generates now, how people's attention span are.
And do you think that's because like of your experience teaching and like choreographing that you're able to kind of sense people's attention spans? Or
I think just in general, people now, you think with the way social media is and everything's given to you, it's so fast. It's just kind of like you see it and it's gone in an instant. So if I put all that stuff out now, they'll see it, but they're not going to remember. There's so many other things that are coming. So you got to keep reminding them ever so often. And I think also, I just see how it is. I know, like, I don't really post a lot of stuff, even on my profile pictures on Facebook. I don't have a lot of pictures. There are things that are tagged to me, but even on my personal Instagram, people would think that I would have like 2,000 pictures posted on there. Cause people who were out, they post it. And I'm just like, I think for a long time ago, 2010 is when I stopped this, and I would post everything, like on my travels when I was here. And I said, this is making my life way too accessible to everyone, especially for someone who does like a little privacy. I think I'm an open book, but there are some things that
you want to choose, I guess, when to be open.
So I deleted everything off. I deleted like 1,500 friends. And it was just like, if I've never met you, we don't have to be the best friends, but if I never met you, why do I have you on here in my... So now it's a little different, but even then, I'm like, all right, but so I think just with that, I kind of started doing stuff, but I also recognized that it's very rare that I'll actually post a picture like my stories.
Yeah, you're very active on your stories, but
Liddy,
not on
my stories are Liddy.
Yes,
And so it's so funny. So I realized that I started thinking like, if I post a picture, It could have been me drinking like coffee, but it's been a while since I posted something. People are like,
yeah.
And so I know that when you come back, and it's what's about again, and I know that
attention.
Yeah, and these images are striking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always very strategic about, okay, what is the show about? What am I trying to say? Like the human condition. And I don't know if you've seen any of these images, but I can show you some more of them.
Yeah, I would love to see more. I saw the one that you sent me, and then a few on the
and there are other
feed.
ones, and so it's just like that. Even the next show that we're doing, Color Me Bad. And this is going to be more of I hate to use the word
immersive. When is this show going to be?
Well, in the spring, because we do our home season twice a year, in October and then in March.
Okay.
It just happens that in this spring it's going to be February because of the way the dates worked out, but we're going to do the Black Card again. Because at that time, that wasn't under Social Movement. That was under Elijah Gibson.
Okay.
Yeah, Presents. And now that the company is gaining traction, people didn't see that, so we're actually going to do a 3-day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Maybe we would, I definitely want to try to come.
Most definitely,
really
cool. It's a great show. And then in the fall, we're going to do this one, more of a fundraiser thing. And like I said, I don't want to call it immersive or, because I just feel like that just has this idea attached to it. But most definitely, I'm going to curate. There's going to be art, there's going to be music, and it's kind of like a fundraiser benefit type thing. But there's a dance that unfolds that people don't know what's unfolding while they're in it. That'll be the later part of the evening.
That sounds really cool.
And it's going to be themed around,
I would love to know, maybe for a different conversation, but we could talk more about that process. And
Well, that's the thing
maybe even be in on the process. And
most definitely. We would love that. And that's the thing, we have to create that, which is great that the Black Card is somewhat already choreographed. People know it. Because it's something I have to really conceptualize how I want this to happen. It can't just be, let's just do it for the sake of doing it. And it's going to be themed around most definitely queer art, I guess, the gay experience, just dealing with that and the images for that. People aren't going to be ready.
I'm excited. As we wrap up, we have what's called our Flash 4 portion, where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash.
Okay.
Flash 4.
So that means quickly, let's see. This is a true test.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
Kind of. Yes.
Okay. Question number 1. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
I'll come back to it.
Come back? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 2. What was the first dance you saw?
It's as far as...
However you want to interpret it.
The first dance I saw? The Running Man. I don't know. Growing up, just cultural dances when I was growing as a kid. I don't know.
Question number 3. I'm going to cut you off. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Yes and no.
Okay. I feel like we need another interview to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah. But I know, and that's actually an important question because that's something that I talk about with my dancers quite a bit and some other friends who dance, but I would love to actually just talk about that. I know you gotta go, so.
Question number 4. What is your favorite social media platform?
Well, I guess my Instagram. Because
it's
so interesting. I used to Snapchat all the time, but that wasn't public. And then when Instagram started their thing, I was like, I'm not switching over. I can't do that. It's too confusing. And now I switched over to Instagram, and I haven't even Snapchatted in probably 3 years.
Me too. Yeah. Okay, let's come back to that first question. If you had to recommend a resource, what would it be?
Life. Yeah, I think just be aware. I could say this book and that book, but all those things are inspired and they're about. And I don't have one particular book, one particular movie. I would just say, that's my resource, is life. I look around me.
Wow, that's the perfect way to end this podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
you.
your time, Elijah. This is incredible. We need definitely a round 2.
Yeah. I would love it.
This was really great. So thanks for all the work that you're doing just for the world. I think you're answering and offering some important questions, and I just feel really privileged to get to talk with you.
I'm privileged that you would actually ask me and choose me to do this. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Elijah.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.